When I first started playing banjo, I didn't quite understand how much a good banjo slide could add to an arrangement. So that's what I'm here to teach you today, the way that I wish slides were taught to me in the beginning. So slides are a pretty simple left-hand technique, right? We just slide from one note to another. But there are a few pieces of the technique that I feel like took me a long time to really grasp. And even more importantly, it took me a long time to figure out how to incorporate slides into my arrangements and my banjo playing. So I could play a slide when I encountered it in a piece of music, but I didn't really understand how to incorporate them myself. And I felt like it took me years to really incorporate slides as a regular piece of my playing. So I'm here to save you that trouble and just get you playing slides and sounding great. So let's go. So the first thing I want you to do is go into the description. The first line of the description is going to be a link to a PDF you can download with exercises to improve your slides. These are just little drills you can do at the start or end of your practice session that are really going to help. And they take like 10 minutes to hit your inbox. So if you go get it now, it should be waiting for you by the time this video is over and you can get right to work. I am really working on growing this channel. It's starting to pick up, which is awesome. I'm so happy about this. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. That's crazy. Never thought I'd be there. But if you could help me along even a little more, if you like this kind of content, if you like playing the banjo, you want to learn more, just hit like, subscribe to the channel. Yeah, it's super exciting for me. It really encourages me to keep going. All right, so let's get into it. First thing we're going to do here is a quick 30-second review of basic slide technique, and then we'll get into these couple of particulars. I'm going to just start on the 3rd string here at the 2nd fret and slide up to the 4th. And really that's all it is to it. So on the downward, claw hammer stroke, that index finger strike or middle finger if you use that, you're going to start that on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. And you're just going to slide your finger up to the 4th. And if you do it, if you don't wait a super long time like I just did, that 4th fret should be ringing out reasonably loud by the time you get there. All right, so that is your 30-second slide review. One thing I would point out that I think will probably improve your technique here is to just tilt your finger just a little bit when you actually do the slide. That's because we're playing this fretted instrument here. I guess you probably wouldn't have to do this on a fretless banjo, but if I don't tilt my finger just a little bit, I can kind of end up ramming the side of my fingernail into the fret, which will stop the slide or at least make it disjointed and sometimes take a chunk out of my fingernail, which is never fun. So yeah, just try tilting your finger just a little bit and that will kind of help you glide over the strings a little easier. So the first thing I really want to discuss that I think will help improve your slides a lot, and I wish I had kind of understood a little better in the beginning, is the timing of the slide. So I'm going to pop open this little measure of tab here to kind of show you how this works. So we've got beats 1 and 2, just basic bum diddy. 1, 1, 2, and then we've got a slide. 3 and 4 and, right? And that is how I want you to think about it. Look where the destination note is, that 4th fret, it's on the end of the 3rd beat. And so we want to make sure that we hit that fret right on the end. So 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and, right? So we've got the start and end of our slide locked in to the beat, right? Now there is a little bit of flexibility here when you play the slide about how you time it. And basically the way you do that, I don't really think about the speed of the slide or anything like that. I think of how long I'm staying on that first note. So if I play this the way I typically play it, it'd be like 1, 2, and 3. You see, I'm pausing just a little bit before I make the slide. Now you can slow that down and stay even longer on that first note, or you can speed it up, either way. So, if I slow it down and stay even longer on that first note, it might sound like something like this. And you get almost that swing time feel, right? Or I can speed it up and basically not stay on that note for long at all. Just these little differences, and you'll kind of feel what feels right to you. It can all sound good in different circumstances. I kind of have my default, but be willing or able to change it up and maybe just kind of practice a couple of different ways of doing that. Now, the other thing you'll sometimes see is these sort of grace note slides. Those look like this. And when you see that little grace note, all that means is you're essentially just sliding as fast as possible from A to B. So your destination note is just going to be a fraction after the beat. You're going to make the slide as fast as possible. So you don't see those that often, but you may encounter them. So that's what that means. It's a grace note, and just go from A to B as fast as possible. You're essentially just accenting the destination note rather than sort of playing two different notes there. So the next thing I want to talk about then is sustaining the slide. We talked about how when we slide, we want a good loud sound at that destination fret, even though we're not striking it again with our right hand. But we need to think too about when to actually lift off our finger. Now, this can definitely vary, and it's kind of whatever you feel is right for the song or the mood. But I notice a lot of people just sort of take their finger off right away by default and reset. And that doesn't always sound quite right. So I want you to think about, there's a good rule of thumb basically, and that's move your left hand as little as possible to get the point across. That's what I always think of, is how can I reduce the movement of my hand? All right, so we're gonna look at this in the context of the fourth string. So I'm gonna slide from the second fret to the fifth fret, do a little brush stroke, thumb pluck. So we'll just go like this, 1 and 2. Now listen to what happens if I pick up my middle finger after the slide. We lose that note. So even though we're not specifically playing that fifth fret of the fourth string on that brush stroke, just the sustain of staying on that fret sounds really nice with it. And when we take our finger off too soon there, we kind of lose the lower end of the banjo there. So I think it sounds really nice to keep your finger down. I'm not saying you always need to do that, but it's something to think about. Don't always just take your finger off and reset. And I think that is where that comes from, is that you get above the third or fourth fret and you start to go, where am I? What am I doing? And you just want to go back home to that first position, right? So I think those two things will go a long way to improving your slides. The next thing I want you to think about is sort of where to start and end your slides. How do you know, right? That was like a little bit of trickery to me that I didn't really understand. I would see these tabs and they would slide, do a slide or whatever, but I didn't really understand how to figure that out for myself. How do they know where to start and end? So I'll give you a couple of really simple rules here that will help you incorporate these into your own arrangements. And these will really help. So the first good place for a slide is when you're playing a melody note on an open string. So as an example, say I'm playing this melody, simple melody. So I'm just playing open first twice, open second, open third. Well, maybe we can make this a little more interesting by adding a slide. So we've got those two notes on the first string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go one string down to my second string. I'm going to see where that note occurs. Sounds about right. We're looking at the third fret of the second string. So now I can slide into that fret. So instead of right, I'm just moving the melody note down one string to a fretted note and sliding into it. Pretty simple, right? If we look at our second string, say the melody note falls on an open second, well, we can look and see that note also appears on the third string at the fourth fret, so we can slide into there. So instead of making a And then from the third to the fourth, we're at the fifth fret here. See how that works? And so the same thing with chords to a little bit of a lesser extent, but if you are playing a chord with a fretted note, you can just slide into any of those. So say I start with a D chord here. I've got my middle finger on the third fret of the second string. I can just slide into that third fret and fret the whole chord. And it's gonna work. So where do you actually start your slides from then? Well, really easy answer here. You don't have to think too much about this. Start the slide anywhere below the note you're trying to go to. And it's all going to have different feels and flavors to it. Some might not sound quite right, and you can pick those out for yourself. Some of them might sound a little dissonant, but generally just pick a note that sounds okay below the chord or the fret you're going to, and it's going to sound pretty good. If we look at the fourth string as an example, so say my destination is the fifth fret here. I can start it from the fourth, third, second, or first. And it all sounds pretty decent. I don't really love starting on that first fret there, but it's still okay. Kind of what we're changing is the rhythm more than anything else, right? Or I guess not the rhythm, but the feel of the slide. So obviously the larger distance we have to go, the more of the slide sound you're going to have. If we start from the fourth fret, just a very little slide sound there. It's almost like a string bend, pretty cool. And if we start from like the second, we'll get that big slide sound, right? But basically just play around with it. Don't worry about hitting a bad note. If something doesn't sound, sounds a little dissonant to you or not quite right, just try a different fret. Not too much to worry about there. Okay, hope that helps. So play with those exercises, use the techniques I taught you in here, and I will see you next time.